Hi, welcome to my channel, True Crime with Gael. Thanks so much for stopping by. I apologize for the gap in content. I let myself get sucked into Babylon and got overwhelmed with the responsibilities of my current job. I'm glad to have pulled myself out of it. I'm also ecstatic to have over 400 subscribers. I love creating, so I'll be prioritizing YouTube a lot more and posting at least 2 videos a week from now on. And I'll also be a lot better at responding to the comments anyone takes the time to make. If you aren't subscribed and you do enjoy this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Alright, let's begin. When Stacy Thur found out she was pregnant, she was 20 years old and terrified. She and the father, Daniel Levesque, were high school sweethearts and had to grow up quickly with the unexpected news. They never regretted a thing, however. As soon as Daniel was born, he was a joy from the very beginning. He had a huge personality and was funny and intelligent. Daniel always had a song in his heart. Before he could even speak, at 6 months old, he would wake up in his crib and start singing melodies he'd created himself. Daniel hit all of his milestones much sooner than expected. He walked early and didn't stop when he learned how to talk early too. He was also an incredibly empathetic child. When Daniel was just 3.5 years old, his youngest brother, Kiki, died unexpectedly in his crib from SIDS when he was only about 21 months old. Daniel was in the room when his mother found his brother's body, 3 days after Valentine's Day in 1995. Daniel would come to his mother in her moments of grief, wipe away her tears, and tell her not to be sad. One morning, after going on a Sunday afternoon ride with his family, his grandfather found him sitting on a rock, crying into his small hands. And Daniel said, "This is the saddest day of my life. I think of Kiki, and my heart is full of blood." Like adults, children and teens may feel intense sadness and loss or grief when a person close to them dies. After someone important dies, some children and teens may experience strikingly intense sadness and have a more severe reaction known as childhood traumatic grief. In childhood traumatic grief, children develop symptoms associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. Children may be more likely to experience traumatic grief if the death was sudden, if it occurred under terrifying circumstances, or if the child witnessed or learned of the details surrounding the death. According to the National Traumatic Stress Network, however, it can also result from an anticipated death, such as following a long illness or disabling injury. Here are a few tips to help surviving siblings through their grieving processes. Some surviving siblings feel depressed, lonely, and preoccupied with their own deaths. In extreme cases, they may even exhibit suicidal ideation and feel they want to join the sibling. If this occurs, acknowledge their sadness and tell them that it's an understandable response to the family's loss. Encourage children to return to their regular life-affirming activities. Playing and socializing with friends can increase children's sense of accomplishment and give them vital social support. However, be especially alert if children become extremely withdrawn or isolated, and seek professional help immediately if they express thoughts about suicide. If surviving siblings become obsessed with thoughts that they could have or should have prevented the death, and consequently are overwhelmed with feelings of responsibility and guilt, reassure them that the death was not their fault. Explain that things often look different in hindsight, but that there was nothing they could have done at the time, and let them know that you don't blame them for their sibling's death. The death of a sibling may also lead a child to feel more fearful, vulnerable, and aware of their own mortality and the mortality of the people they love. Consequently, they may become overly cautious and overly protective of other siblings and of their parents or caregivers, because they fear that something will happen to them. To help them avoid letting this fear rule their life, a parent or guardian should acknowledge surviving children's fears and talk about them without dismissing them. Reassure children about their safety, for example, by reviewing safety plans and establishing check-in times. Also, make sure they aren't getting their cues from you by monitoring your own fears and maintaining a sense of control and calm. As in the case with anyone grieving a traumatic loss, each child grieves differently. They just have less tools than adults do when it comes to clearly communicating how they feel. There is no right or wrong way or length of time to grieve, and an abundance of patience will be required. In 2011, Daniel Levesque was a budding musician and artist that was just coming into his own. He grew up in the small town of Revelstoke and developed into a talented musician and poet. He loved to play guitar, write music, and sing. When he was 20 years old, he decided to move to Victoria, British Columbia, to pursue a career as a performing musician. He arrived in Victoria with little money and quickly was in desperate need of a job. On June 15, 2011, Daniel walked into the 7-Eleven on Douglas Street, of which Joshua Brado was an assistant manager, and was hired by him immediately. Sadly, his dreams and aspirations would be cut short after only a few weeks of living in this strange new world. Born in 1985 and raised in Prince George, Joshua Tyler Brado had a dark past and many names he used to hide it. In 2005, he graduated college with a degree in business administration. He used the name Joshua Baba in October 2007 when he pledged $10,000 of his own money to start the Matthew McCully Foundation to honor a fallen soldier from Prince George. However, the McCully family said he never followed through with the cash and plans for a national tour. In August 2008, the McCully family said Brado left them with bills of $2,300 after a planned benefit event was abruptly canceled only a few days before it was supposed to be held. In 2009, Joshua moved on to Calgary and once again offered to put up $10,000 of his own money to set up a campaign to fight crime. However, history repeated itself when Joshua disappeared without fulfilling any of his empty promises. In June 2009, Calgary mayoral candidate George Dadamo hired Joshua as his campaign manager and then quit the mayor's race after media reports about Joshua's past. Joshua then serviced in southeast British Columbia using the name Joshua Chartier, helping local Conservative Party politician David Wilkes with his campaign. But when Joshua discovered that David was a former RCMP officer, he quickly departed, leaving the candidate to pay for signs, pictures, and a website that he never authorized Joshua to create. By the time Joshua had arrived in Victoria, British Columbia, he had transformed into Joshua Buxton and was a well-seasoned con artist. This was where Daniel Levesque unfortunately encountered Joshua for the first time. The two became fast friends, as Daniel was completely unaware of Joshua's pathological lying and spiraling obsession that would inevitably lead to his murder. When Joshua Brado met Daniel, he had been living with his girlfriend in a Cormorant Street apartment, and she believed they'd get married soon. Joshua didn't tell Daniel he had a girlfriend. In fact, he told Daniel that he had a fiancée in Calgary who had just broken up with him for no reason, and that he was broken-hearted because of it. He let Daniel believe he was single, lived alone, and wanted to party with young women. Daniel empathized with Joshua because he had also just broken up with his longtime girlfriend from Norway. Daniel was excited to have made a new friend and shared how he was helping Joshua through his breakup with his family back home. Everything was going well for Daniel. He loved living in Victoria. He had a piece of his poetry published in a local street magazine, and he'd started playing guitar and singing at a weekly open mic night held at the Baja Surf Grill. People loved to hear Daniel perform. Joshua's attraction to Daniel quickly became a considerable issue for him. Within days of meeting Daniel, Joshua confided to a friend that he was seriously falling for this guy. He asked another friend, "Why am I so in love with him?" Daniel was unaware that Joshua's offer of friendship and the fabrications that followed had their basis in an all-consuming sexual attraction he had developed for Daniel. Joshua once confided in a text to a friend that he was out with his straight younger bud, and that he is straight and thinks I am too, haha. Joshua paid for dinner and drinks for Daniel, pretending he came from an affluent family. He told Daniel members of his family worked at a high-powered law firm in Calgary, and family members owned a law firm in Victoria. From mid-June to early August, Joshua bought cocaine 15 times, which he consumed with Daniel. He told Daniel he would get him a job at the fictitious law firm in Victoria by September, and also said that there would be an orientation session in August. Joshua also told Daniel that his mother had planned a bogus, all-inclusive trip to Cuba for him and his ex-fiancée, and offered to take Daniel instead. Daniel saw Joshua as a friend and mentor, and continued to show admiration and respect for Joshua. This fueled Joshua's attraction even more to the younger man. Joshua became more frustrated and depressed the more he realized Daniel would never feel the same way about him. By the end of July, Joshua's girlfriend had kicked him out of her apartment, and he was let go from his job at 7-Eleven because of poor performance issues. Joshua turned to drugs and alcohol to escape his unhappiness. On July 31st, Daniel took a ferry to Vancouver Island to meet with his mother and grandmother for the last time. As they had dinner together, he talked excitedly about his new friend Joshua and the job opportunity he had secured for him at his mother's law firm. The orientation had been scheduled for the following day. When his mother offered to buy him dress clothes for it, Daniel told her that the law firm had a clothing budget that they would be using to provide him with some new suits. When his mother suspiciously asked Daniel why Joshua had decided to be so nice to him, he simply responded by telling her that that was just the type of person he was. After they parted ways, Daniel's mother's last text to him was asking him to tell Joshua thank you for treating her son so well. The next day, Joshua told Daniel that the orientation had been canceled because his mother had to take care of his sick younger brother. On the afternoon of August 3rd, 2011, Daniel came to Joshua's apartment for what he believed would be an orientation session for the fictitious law firm. Joshua had been using cocaine and had slept very little for 3 days. After Daniel arrived, Joshua told him that the orientation had been canceled once again. He convinced Daniel to stay and party with him. However, after a while, Daniel started asking about the orientation, the trip to Cuba, and a raise he was promised. It was then that Daniel started to realize Joshua had been lying to him about everything. He became upset and told Joshua they were no longer friends. He tried to leave the apartment, but Joshua physically prevented him by grabbing him. Daniel became frightened and thrashed around, trying to break away from the much bigger man. Joshua was panicked about Daniel leaving and telling his friends about his lies. He grabbed a hammer and struck Daniel 3 times on the head with so much force that the hammer broke in two. Daniel tried to shield his head with his hand for one of the blows, and that resulted in him injuring his hand during the struggle. Daniel's scalp was bleeding profusely. He was still fighting, trying to leave, and finally broke free to make it to the apartment door. The men struggled, and Joshua pushed him into the walls around the doorway, marking them with Daniel's blood. The fight was so intense that the neighbors heard bangs and vibrations through the walls. Daniel managed to open the door a crack, leaving bloodstains around the deadbolt. He screamed out, "Let me go! Just let me go! And help me! Help me!" Joshua pulled Daniel back into the apartment and slammed the door. Daniel fell unconscious to the living room floor and continued to bleed out. To top this all off, based on evidence taken in a later forensic examination, it's believed that at some point in that hideous night, Joshua attempted to sexually assault Daniel. In a panic, Joshua went into the kitchen and grabbed a large kitchen knife and used it on his own arm, stomach, and head. He picked up Daniel and placed him face down on the couch. He then took the kitchen knife and placed it on the floor close to Daniel's right hand. Lastly, Joshua laid on the floor close to the hammerhead. He called 911 and said his friend had attacked him. Police initially believed Joshua was the victim. Daniel died a few hours later in a hospital, alone. Obsessive love disorder, or OLD, refers to a condition where you become obsessed with one person you think you may be in love with. While OLD is gaining more attention, it's relatively rare. It's estimated that less than 0.1% of people have the disorder. Symptoms of OLD may include an overwhelming attraction to one person, obsessive thoughts about the person, feeling the need to protect the person you're in love with, possessive thoughts and actions, extreme jealousy over other interpersonal interactions, and low self-esteem. People who have OLD may also not take rejection easily. In some cases, the symptoms could worsen at the end of a relationship or if the other person rejects you. The warning signs that someone may be experiencing OLD include repeated texts, emails, and phone calls to the person they're interested in, a constant need for reassurance, difficulty having friendships or maintaining contact with family members because of the obsession over one person, monitoring the actions of the other person, and controlling where the other person goes and the activities they engage in. Although no separate medical or psychological classification exists for OLD, it can often accompany other types of mental health illnesses. Types of attachment disorders associated with OLD include disinhibited social engagement disorder, or DSED, and reactive attachment disorder, or RAD. These both develop during childhood from negative experiences with parents or other adult caregivers. These disorders refer to people who have emotional attachment issues, such as a lack of empathy or an obsession with another person. In DSED, you might be overly friendly and not take precautions around strangers. With RAD, you may feel stressed and have problems getting along with others. Borderline personality disorder is characterized by a disturbance with self-image, coupled with severe mood swings and anxious and depressive episodes. It can also cause you to be extremely angry to extremely happy within a matter of minutes or hours, which can manifest in OLED through switches between extreme love for a person to extreme hate. Delusional jealousy can also be linked to OLED, causing you to believe the other person has reciprocated their feelings for you, even if they've made it clear this is indeed not true. According to a 2005 study, delusional jealousy may be linked to alcoholism in men. Erotomania causes you to believe that someone famous or of a higher social status is in love with you. This can lead to harassment of the other person, such as showing up at their home or workplace. People with erotomania are often isolated with few friends, and they may even be unemployed. The precise treatment plan for OLED depends on the underlying cause. However, it often involves a combination of medication and psychotherapy. 7 weeks after Daniel's death, over 1,200 people attended a memorial in his hometown of Revelstoke. So many people wanted to speak about their memories of Daniel that the service went on for over 3 hours. I can only imagine how special Daniel must have been in life, to have had such a profound impact on so many lives at such a young age. It's so unfortunate that he was taken from this earth before he was able to truly fulfill whatever his purpose was meant to be. The community really helped come together and support Daniel's family in their time of grief. They lost 7 children in Revelstoke that year, all of them unconnected. The air around Revelstoke had become thick with grief, so many people could empathize with the Levesque family's traumatic experience. Daniel's friends and high school music teacher organized a high school benefit concert in his name, where his friends performed all of his favorite songs. The concert raised over $15,000 for a new music scholarship called the Daniel Levesque Memorial Scholarship, which gives $500 to a student every year. Daniel's friends also had 2,000 red rubber bracelets made to honor his memory, and on them they printed the words, "Love for Daniel." Daniel's younger sister, who was 12 at the time he was murdered, recalled how much it helped for her to see so many people wearing his bracelets. They took pictures of their Love for Daniel bracelets around the world. In their own way, they helped Daniel reach far-off places he never got the opportunity to see and experience. Finally, in May of 2012, 80 of Daniel's family and friends got together to celebrate what would have been his 21st birthday. Before their meal, they released red balloons that each had a loving note attached to them into the sky.
First-degree murder charges have been laid in the 2011 death of a Victoria man. Daniel Jordan Levesque died after being stabbed in his Victoria apartment. Joshua Tyler Brado is charged. Brado was arrested yesterday in a town just south of Calgary. Levesque's mother calls the charges bittersweet.
Kind of an early Christmas present for all of us. As bittersweet as it is that it had to come to this, it's happening, and we're just thankful for Daniel's sake that he's going to get some justice, we're hoping.
The original charge was going to be second-degree murder, but the Crown thought evidence supported the more serious first-degree murder charge.
Joshua Brado, who was 26, was initially charged with the second-degree murder of Daniel, but that charge was stayed in December 2011 after a coroner claimed that Daniel died from an overdose. After more investigation, Joshua was charged with first-degree murder, sexual assault, and unlawful confinement in 2013. A trial by judge and jury, which began in January 2015, ended in a mistrial. It came out later that one of the reasons was because of the prosecutor's late disclosure of forensic computer evidence. 2 new trials were adjourned because of pre-trial applications that were behind schedule. At this time, the prosecution and Daniel's family were afraid that Joshua would end up walking free because of the 2016 Jordan decision, which was when the Supreme Court, regarding the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, stated that any person charged with an offense has the right to be charged within a reasonable time. They decided that there should be a ceiling of 30 months or 2.5 years between the charges and the trial. In 2017, after 6 years of delaying and bungling this case, a plea deal was struck with Joshua, who is now 32, after he pled guilty to murdering Daniel on the much lesser charge of manslaughter. Crown Prosecutor Paula Donacci and defense lawyer Tim Russell asked the judge to sentence Brado to additional prison time of 2 years less a day for a global sentence of 9 years and 2 months. In this case, Joshua got credit of 1.5 days for every day he spent in custody after being sentenced. Since Joshua had been in custody for 4 years, 9 months, and 23 days, he received credit of just over 7 years for time spent in pre-trial custody. Joshua was sentenced to 2 years in prison for a total sentence of just 6 years and 9 months, which was seen officially by the courts as 9 years. This was to be followed by only 3 years of probation. After the sentencing, family members of Daniel Jordan Levesque gave emotional impact statements. Daniel's mother said, "I am forever lost. Daniel had a pure heart. He helped everyone and never had an enemy in his life until he was killed by a man he thought was his friend. No matter how hard I try, I will never be the person I once was," she said, wiping tears from her eyes as Joshua sat behind her in the defense's box, his face expressionless. Daniel's father, Stefan, also spoke and said the lengthy court process had been devastating for his family and for the community. He fought back tears as he spoke about how his son's death and the repeated court appearances had broken him and turned him into a different man. When Daniel's younger sister, Lainey, took the podium, the courtroom fell silent as she recounted how she was 12 when her brother died. "I have not had a restful sleep since Daniel died," she said. "Nothing anyone can do can give me back my innocence." Joshua Brado only served 16 months of his 2-year sentence due to good behavior.
There was a sense of relief for family and friends of 20-year-old Daniel Levesque last June when the man who killed him, Joshua Brado, was sentenced to 9 years in jail for manslaughter.
We can now focus on his beautiful life instead of his death, because that's all it's ever been about for the last 6 years.
Because Brado had already spent nearly 6 years in jail awaiting trial, he only had to spend another 2 behind bars, or so Levesque's family thought.
He's been out since almost 2 months, and we didn't even know. Nobody told us.
Thur says after making calls, she found out Brado was granted early release in October after serving 16 of the 24 months remaining in his sentence.
I felt really disappointed, and I feel like Daniel's been done an injustice already, and it felt like another one, to be quite honest.
Brado's sentence also includes 3 years of probation, which prevents him from contacting Levesque's family, using drugs or alcohol, or possessing weapons. But none of it softens the disappointment Daniel Levesque's family is feeling about Brado's release.
I just feel robbed. I feel robbed again, to be quite honest.
Another blow for a mom already missing out on watching her son's promising young life unfold.
I feel terrible for this family. I cannot believe that Joshua got so little time for the horrific things he did to Daniel. He even got released early from his 9-year sentence. I think that rehabilitation is a beautiful thing if it can be attained in prison. But I also believe that people should serve sufficient time for violent crimes such as murder, pedophilia, and aggravated or sexual assault. In the US, people who have committed murder do tend to get sentences that match the crime. There are glaring errors in the US justice system, though. I mean, sometimes people are innocent. And I believe that those convicted for nonviolent drug offenses are getting way too much time. While on the other hand, pedophiles and others who commit sexual assault don't get nearly enough time, if they do spend any time in prison at all. Only a paltry 0.7% of rapes end in felony convictions for the perpetrator in the US. Yes, you heard me right. 0.7%. Less than 1%. What do you believe? Do you think Joshua Brado got enough time? Do you think that your justice system is fine the way it is? If not, what do you want to change? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Daniel Jordan Levesque was a man with a powerful, empathetic, creative spirit that was taken way too soon, leaving behind beautiful traces of himself in every person he came in contact with. One of the last few pieces of art Daniel left behind in his short and promising music career was a recording he made in Victoria a few weeks before his death, covering Lynyrd Skynyrd's song, Simple Man. I've uploaded this recording so you can enjoy his rendition of the song. Thanks so much for visiting my channel. If you enjoyed the video, Please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. I'll be posting mostly true crime, but also other mysteries and conspiracy theories. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. I hope you all have peaceful and fulfilling weeks. Bye.